Hi everyone and welcome back to Next Diecast. For today's video, I'll be showing you and reviewing this 1/18 scale Saleen S7 made by Motormax. I got this model off eBay for $20 plus shipping. It ended up being, I think, just about $28 in total, which I thought was a great deal. In terms of availability, I'm not too sure if this model has been discontinued or not, but it is still widely available. I know Diecast Model Wholesale still has a few of these in various colors. Amazon, they turn up occasionally on there. And of course, eBay too. Now, there are actually several different variations of this particular model. In terms of colors, you'll find it in this kind of neat looking copper orange. It's actually like a metallic a color too. A yellow, kind of a dark red, a silver, and I think there's harder to find black and white versions too. But older versions of this model, I'll use the orange as kind of an example, but they'll have kind of like an orangey beige colored interior, and also the engine bay area back here will also be kind of an orangey looking beige. And some versions have the beige interior and the engine, how it looks back here, in black, and some versions will have just the black interior with the silver accents and the black engine bay area too. I think it really depends on when the model was actually made. This one, I believe, was made around 2004 or 2005. I forget what the copyright date on the box exactly said, but it was the blue box that Motormax was using during both of those years. But if you're able to find this model, I would say in a lot of ways it's better than the Hot Wheels version, who also makes this particular car. The thing is, the Hot Wheels version is large, and this one is small compared to that one. So I don't know if Motormax got the car too small or Hot Wheels just made it too big. Not too sure on that, but this one has more opening features. It's more widely available. So I'd say I kind of favor this particular version over the Hot Wheels version. But so we'll go ahead and start with the details on the front of the model. Go ahead and take a look at the headlights to start off with. I think Motormax did a good job with the headlights. They did a great job with the overall shape of them. They have that nice kind of black perimeter around them. There's no wide gap or anything between the plastic and the metalwork. I've seen some versions of this where the headlights are a little bit fogged. Mine doesn't have that problem. And you can see on the front here, you do have the Saleen badge. It's actually, it almost looks like it's a three-dimensional piece, but it's actually part of the metalwork, as you can see here. There is this lower portion here. I don't know if that's a grill or if it's just kind of a textured piece on the real car, but I think Motormax does a good job with it. It kind of has a gloss black look to it. You have all kinds of vents on this model here. None of them are actually all the way kind of perforated, but at least they're included. I wish they maybe painted the insides of these vents black to look more, I guess, convincing. This is actually a functional hood scoop up here, so Motormax does do a good job with that. And the paint quality on this model overall, I would say, is actually very well done compared to other models that Motormax has made. It's pretty smooth throughout. It has the metallic look and finish to it. There's, I guess, just very slight orange peel like here and there, but I mean, aside from that, you don't really see too many defects. The tops of the doors do have a very slight different pigment than the rest of the car. That's because they are plastic as opposed to a metal. But the only issue I see with that is if you store this car in long-term in like sunlight, these will begin to fade. But this was, I guess, pretty well protected when it was stored, aside from the fact it was covered in dirt. I think the dirt kind of did it a favor, like kind of protecting the whole paint job on here. But just be mindful of that. And you can't really notice the color difference unless you look at it like really, really close. So that's not a big deal at all. Motormax also does a good job with the wheels here. They have that nice, what are these? The 7-spoke look to them. A little bit of very slight chipping along here, but you can easily just take a silver Sharpie and fix those. There are versions of this model that do come with chrome rims as opposed to silver. And the chrome wheels, I think, look better in terms of appearance, but in terms of like, I guess, quality, the silver ones are going to be better because you won't have to worry about, you know, the wheels fading or anything, because the chrome does tend to fade if you touch it and stuff. These won't, and these you can easily repair with a silver Sharpie if you ever have any chipping or rubbing or anything like that. They also have the disc brakes and calipers, but the weird thing is that the caliper moves with the disc, which is very strange, and that usually happens on these Motormax models. I don't know why they keep doing that, but interesting quirk, I guess, of this model. You don't have suspension on here, but you do actually have full steering. Though it is kind of noisy. You kind of hear that. Even when you roll the car, it's kind of noisy, but that's not a big deal. A lot of these Motormaxes are kind of noisy. I don't know why that is, but I guess it's like a quality thing or something. Lots of scoops and vents along the sides of the model here. Motormax, I think, nails the overall shape of them. None of them are necessarily functional, but they kind of give off a look of being like real vents because these had like the black painted on the inside and what have you. And these down here are very like well defined, I guess you could say. The mirrors are actually made of metal. You don't really see that too often on like newer 1/18 scale cars past like the 1990s. So these will never break off or bend or anything. So that's, you know, reassuring to see that. You do have a radio antenna up here. It's actually pretty sturdy. It does bend a slight bit, but you don't have to worry about that, you know, being pulled off or anything. Just be mindful of it, you know, bending and stuff when you put it back in the box. Your tiny little door handles along here. I think they're just buttons. And on the real car, you do actually have a key fob where you can push a certain button and have the doors open or have the rear open. It's very cool. I've always loved the S7. It's a really cool looking car. They made it from 2001 until 2009 in real life. Taking a look at the back here, you got another set of vents back here. These do look better than the vents in the front because these actually do have the black painted on the insides to make them look like they're actual vents. You do get a spoiler back here, which is made of metal. And they do a nice job with the taillights, too. There is kind of a small peg in the center of each one, but, I mean, that's where the bulb would actually be on the real car. You actually do have a hollowed-out grille back here, which is very well done. And also this S7 badge on here. It looks like a separate piece, but it's actually attached to the grille. Very cool. And the Saleen inscription along back here. And 4 exhaust pipes. They do look a slight bit cheap, but I think they're better than other exhausts that Motormax has done. This model is actually kind of heavy too, which is nice to say. The whole thing is made of die cast, with the exception of the two, of course, you know, the obvious windows and everything. But the only other plastic components on any of the opening parts on here are the tops of the doors. I mean, of course, the wheels and tires, they're not made of metal, but very heavy car. Probably my heaviest 118 supercar that I have, so that's a noteworthy feature. I forgot to mention you do actually have a gas cap back here too. Love that chrome, it looks really, really cool. Now some versions of this model will come with this pillar not painted black. It'll just be orange like the rest of the car. Not very realistic, but if you do, I guess, end up with a model like that, you could always just color it in with like a matte black, you know, Sharpie or something to make it look, or maybe even paint it matte black to make it look more like realistic. But this model has the proper black on here, so that's nice to say. Now, in terms of opening features, there are plenty on here. We'll start with the trunks, which there are 2 of. As you can see here, we'll start with the front trunk. Not too much to see in here. There is actually a nice texture, and the piece is very well aligned with the metal, as you can see. The underside is actually painted in orange. There's no underspray or anything like that. I'm not sure what this is back here, but I think the real car does actually have that. It does open up on dogleg hinges. It does feel like a pretty strong opening piece, though. And there's that functional hood scoop. You can kind of see it when I open and close this piece up here. And here's the rear trunk. Again, not too much to see in here, but there is a nice texture. These kind of like reservoirs on the sides here. They are actually on the real car. And you can see the metal spoiler on there too. Looks very well done. Now, it's not widely advertised, but this engine cover actually does open in the back here. It's just kind of hard to do so. You really have to kind of bend it up like this. That's as far as I want to push it because I'm afraid of, you know, breaking it. I've seen these open a little bit farther than this, but on mine, this is pretty much how far it opens. It does open up on plastic hinges, so just be very careful with it. I guess it's kind of pointless to have this open because you pretty much see everything in there when it's closed anyway. But it's a cool feature, and the real car does have the opening glass, so at least that's kind of a touch of like realism there. Back here, there really is not too much to see in terms of engine detailing. You do have that Saleen inscription here, and the piece is very, you know, it's not loose or anything. You do have the 7.0 liter imprinted on there, and also this kind of a cross brace. And they do put in some silver detailing on the sides and those silver kind of dots in the center there. Now, some versions of this model will come with no detailing at all back here. It'll just have everything in black. Like this, it'll be the same engine piece, but you won't have that extra kind of silver, like accenting in there. And the braces won't be silver. They'll just be black. The whole thing will be black. And on some older versions of this model, the whole engine back here is actually beige to match the interior. I think that's kind of garish, especially paired up with like the orange paint color. And no matter what, which is kind of strange, these braces will be black. Except on here, which they're silver. On every other version of this model, the braces are black. So it's very weird to see on the older versions with like the orangey beige engine with the black braces. So this is, I think, the best detailed engine piece of any variant of this model, and that's really not saying too much because there really is not too much to actually see back here. I don't even know if the Salene's on the real engine, on the real car or not. I mean, it looks really cool, especially if you see this here and you see the Saleen on the back here. Definitely could use a little bit more detailing, but I think what's there is okay at best. Yeah, the brace does go all the way back, so that's a separate piece. This is a separate piece in the center here. So they do an okay job, but it could use a lot more detailing. But I think compared to the other variants of this model that I mentioned, like the older versions and newer versions that have all black in here, this is better, I would say, because you do have some kind of the silver detail touches. And this actually does fully snap shut. There's actually a latch that locks it in place. So you wouldn't even know that this does open until you see the dogleg hinges back here. Now, one of the coolest things about the S7, of course, is the fact that it has the gull wing doors. These open up like so. Just be careful to not push them too high or too hard, or else they might like break. But when you do have these open, it really does create a really cool look. Like, you can put this up on your shelf like this. It just looks awesome. The S7, I always liked it from like this angle here, like from the front with the doors up. It looks really, really cool in that sense. And the doors do stay up pretty well. I think the hinges are plastic. Yeah, they're plastic held in by screws. You can see you see my finger going back there. So the tops of the doors are plastic, so you do have to be especially careful when you push them up, because the hinges are just being held on by that plastic piece. The bottom hinges, I think, are made of metal. You just can't really see them because they're kind of hidden inside the fender here. But with the doors up, this really does look awesome. And with the doors closed, of course, too. It's a very cool, looking car. You do actually have side windows on the doors, or on the windows on the doors, which is very cool. A lot of these model manufacturers of these budget cars, they don't usually include the side windows, but on here you actually do have those. So we'll take a look at the interior detailing now that we have the doors up. You do have some detailing on the door panels here, kind of a nice texture. You have a silver kind of accent down here and a silver handle on there as well. I'm not sure if every version of this model has the silver detail touches, but it does kind of create a nice accent on the interior. Looks like a speaker on the side here, which is kind of cool to see. And the panels are nice and flush with the metal door too. There's a better look in the lighting on here. Not sure if that's a vent or a speaker on there. And then you have the handle and this kind of silver. This might have to be the speaker, I think, because that's on the lower portion of the door. That might just be a vent. Not too sure on that one. So on the interior, the detailing is okay at best in here. The dashboard does have kind of a nice texture and pattern to it. And you do have this center stack on here, but the buttons are not colored in. At least they do paint it silver to kind of match what the real car has, but there's no detail with the vents or the buttons or anything. They're just kind of a single plastic piece with no coloring. I mean, granted that it is silver, they just didn't paint the individual buttons on there. They do actually do a nice job with the shifter. It looks almost like the real shifter, and it is actually a separate piece too. And there's a couple buttons behind the shifter on that kind of silver portion there. That is on the real car. The steering wheel, it is a bit too low. It looks a bit too shiny too, but I think the real one does look like that sort of. The gauge cluster, I think, is actually the best part of this interior. It's actually fully three-dimensional, and you have separate stickers for each of the gauges. Would have been cool if they included the silver perimeter around it, but you can always just add that yourself, I guess. And you have the steering wheel stalks and a couple, not sure if they're switches or vents on either side of the steering wheel too. But aside from that, that's pretty much it. And that's kind of sadly typical of these Motormax models. They don't really have too much to see on these interiors. But you can always detail it like yourself, I guess. I think the Hot Wheels might have a little bit more detailing on the interior, but not too much. So kind of disappointing a little bit on the interior, but I think what's there looks okay, at least. You do actually have a liner on the roof. I mean, ignore that giant screw there, but they do include a plastic liner in between the doors. Along here, we'll take a look at the seats, actually. Kind of hard to say. That's the best angle I can get because of the doors being open. They do a decent job of the seats. They actually do a very nice texture to them. They are the right shape, maybe a bit too small, and there actually is seat belts. Motormax does not always include seat belts on their models, but you do see the seat belt here, and it does actually have the little buckle on there too. If they had painted the buckle silver, it would have looked a little bit better, but they didn't. But that's not a big deal. I'm trying to see if there are pedals in here. If there are pedals, they're very hard to see because they're kind of like set far back. They do have the handbrake on the floor right here where my finger is, so that's a nice extra touch in there. Go ahead and close this up. The doors actually do lock into place, which is kind of an upper end feature, I would say. You don't really see that too much on these budget cars. Of course, only the back portion actually opens when you hold the car upside down. A lot of models, like everything just falls open, but on here it's just the back. So that's kind of a cool, I guess, interesting feature. Undercarriage on this model, not really anything to see at all. There are like all the rivets going along it, and this is how the real car looks too. It is like everything underneath is covered. You know, for aerodynamics, that is kind of like what you want. That way, you know, the car like drives faster and everything. Overall, I'd say this is a pretty good model of the Saleen S7. And if you can find it for a good price, I would say definitely get it. It looks awesome in any collection of supercars, especially because it has those really cool doors. I mean, just put it up on your shelf with your Lamborghinis and it fits right in, definitely. Hope this video was helpful, and as always, feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on the model. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.